Thank you very much. So good to see you all. I hope you had a nice evening yesterday. Great food, great people. Some went for a run this morning and Pilates and so on. So I hope you had some nice exercise here and get to enjoy the beautiful island we're on. So now this morning we have first a presentation from the European Commissioner, and then we continue with the panel debate on lifelong movement, lifelong exercise. So without further ado, I'd like to invite the European Commissioner for Intergenerational Fairness, Youth, Culture and Sport, Mr. Glenn Micallef, to the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Dear friends of sport, sports organizations, federations, coaches, athletes, public authorities, and volunteers in sport. It's, for me, a great pleasure to welcome you to the second day of this European Sport Forum, the EU Sport Forum in 2026. And I'm also happy that I have been able to see some of you this morning already on our morning run. It's the best way to start the day, isn't it? Being active. That's a shameless advert for our Be Active campaign. This forum brings together people who deeply care about sport, as I do. So today, I have decided that I wanted to speak frankly and openly with you, as one does when he is surrounded with friends, starting by setting out the context, because the context helps us understand the responsibility that we carry and the responsibility that sport carries. And right now, we are living in a world which is marked by instability, a world which is marked by conflict and by war. In Kiev, on our eastern neighborhood in the European Union, everyday life has been reshaped by war. And we are also witnessing now this instability in the Middle East. Today we are gathered in Cyprus, just around 300 kilometers away from Lebanon, from Beirut, a place where more than 1 million people have already been displaced by this instability, and where families have been uprooted and where people were killed. We are not very far from these realities. We have the Lebanese minister who joins us today. She spoke yesterday already, but she can probably tell in far better words than I can what this means to people on the ground. And for those who have lost homes, for those who have lost loved ones, or those who are going through tough times in their lives, sport can offer a sense of normality. A basketball, a football, a volleyball takes a completely different meaning. And it's something that offers a sense of belonging and a sense of hope. Now, you will probably hear that politics should be separate from sport. And I agree. Completely, 100%. But as stakeholders in sport, you know that public support, political and financial, is essential. And I see it as a sense of public duty to support your work. Because what you do for public health, for education, and more broadly for people, goes far beyond the boundaries of any sports field. Now, this support comes without strings attached, absolutely. But that does not mean that as policymakers, we remain silent on issues like governance or on the misuse of sport. Because while sport has never compromised politics, too often politics has compromised sport. And there are some examples which speak volumes about this. I'll give you some. The 1936 Summer Olympics remain a dark stain on the Olympic movement. The 1978 FIFA World Cup stands as another example. Football was then used to distract from repression and from human rights abuses. And these are important lessons for the sporting movement. A sporting movement that will be judged again. This time, by how it responds to the challenges of today. So my question to the sporting movement, to the federations, to the public authorities is a very simple one. Are you comfortable being associated with aggression and violations of international law? Or will you stand for peace, justice, and freedom, as the sporting world once did when it took a stand on apartheid in South Africa? Because ultimately, this is what you will be judged on. Then, let me turn to the 2026 Winter Olympics. In a few moments, we will hear from Kirsty Coventry, the president of the International Olympic Committee, an Olympic champion, and someone who I now call a friend. These were, for me, the first Olympics that I could see in person. And they were nothing short of fantastic. Italy delivered games that were well organized, that made Italians proud, but that made us proud as Europeans. They were a true celebration of excellence, of friendship, and of human potential. I saw joy. I saw children walking into San Siro for the opening ceremony with their parents. Like this was, you could see it on their faces. I saw emotion. The first athlete to win a medal at these Olympics was a female speed skating racer who was celebrating with her daughter, and you could see the release of excitement and of joy. And I saw unity. I saw fans coming together from all parts of the world, and this is exactly the essence of what sport represents. And for me, seeing the European flag fly alongside the national flags was a particularly proud moment. This was, for me, a full circle moment. I was able to see what we so often talk about in these halls. I could see fans from all corners of the world sharing the same space, sharing emotions, and having a great time. Athletes that were striving to win and inspiring fans from all over the world. And this is exactly why our cooperation with the Olympic movement matters so much, because it's built on this shared belief. And most importantly, we have a common commitment to promote sport for all. Over the past year, we have worked a lot, and we have worked closely to make this happen, but there is so much more that we can do on education, on strengthening grassroots sport, and on ensuring that our values are upheld in practice. So this brings me to my vision for sport. The European Commission will soon publish its communication on the European sport model, and this model is the foundation of our sporting ecosystem in Europe. It's what ensures that sport in Europe remains fair, sustainable, and accessible. And that's why we defend this model so strongly. That's why today our priority continues to be to strengthen this sport model. This is a model that is under pressure from poor governance, from excessive commercialization, from profit-driven breakaway leagues, and from other sources. But this does not mean that we resist change. What it means is that we must be the ones that shape that change. And let me be equally clear and equally blunt. This communication, this will not solve everything. Our competence in sport, defined by the treaties, are what they are. But within those limits, there is a lot that we can do. We must support sport through investment, both in infrastructure and in building capacities. We have to recognize the role of sport in education, in health, and in social cohesion, building social cohesion in our societies. And we must mobilize and use our voice to call out decisions that risk distancing sport from its communities, and at the same time recognizing those decisions that put fans first. I'll give you an example. When matches were at risk of being moved thousands of kilometers away from the communities that built them, I made it clear that this was not acceptable for us. And I welcome that some leagues, some federations listened and reconsidered. But there are also some positive examples that we have to recognize and acknowledge. Some federations, some of you in this room, in basketball we have FIBA, in volleyball, European volleyball, the European Handball Federation, and the UEFA with its fans first policy. These show us that there is a way to do this by putting those who sport is for first. Because ultimately, these debates come down to one very, very simple question. Who is sport for? And that is the question that we must continue to answer and be clear about and speak out about. Let me also highlight some other priorities that I want to focus on in this communication, beyond the issues related to excessive commercialization. And there are 4 priorities that I want to focus on today. First is solidarity. You had a panel about this yesterday. If there is one word that everyone in the sporting movement agrees on, it's this. The sporting pyramid depends on this support from elite to grassroots. But with few exceptions, notably in European football, this is increasingly becoming fiction. And it is the grassroots organizations that are going to be the ones that feel it first. But over time, this will also negatively impact the elite. Second, volunteers. All of you who have been in the sporting movement know someone who has been a defining figure in volunteering. In my football academy, when I was growing up, there was this guy called Joseph. He was a banker by day and a superhero in the afternoon. He did everything, from logistics to raising funds, to organizing sessions, to coordinating the football academy. These are the unseen heroes of European sport. And people like them, they are the ones that we should celebrate. Today, especially after COVID, we are facing a volunteering crisis in Europe. It is quiet, it is structured, and it is underreported. The third priority is athlete welfare, well-being of athletes, especially mental well-being. And this is a governing test for the sporting movement. Athletes at elite and semi-professional level are increasingly speaking about burnout, about overcrowded match calendars, about social media scrutiny, about inadequate psychological support. And these are issues that must be at the top of our priority list. And finally, perhaps most importantly as well, is funding and support. EU funding can be used to support infrastructural investments. EU health funding must better support sport. EU social funding must also support sport. But the main implementing instrument of this communication will continue to be Erasmus+. We need stable, predictable funding to support grassroots sport. And we need to do this in communication with the sporting community. So I see this communication also as an opportunity to strengthen the dialogue with you and with the sporting movement. To conclude on this point, I want to thank all of you who have participated in the consultations. We have listened carefully because we wanted to build this together with you. Before I conclude, because I know I have spoken a little bit longer than I should have perhaps, I have two further points. First is a point on the Council recommendation on the health-enhancing physical activity. Since 2013, this has helped European Union member states to put in place national policies that promote physical activity. The World Health Organization in Europe reports show that there has been real progress in our implementation. The number of agreed indicators that have been met over the past decade has progressed significantly. But there's still so much we can do. Half of the people in Europe, half of Europeans, still do not engage in any kind of physical activity. And in many countries, this trend is not improving. I happen to come from the country with the most overweight and obese people in Europe. 2 out of every 3 adults have a problem of being overweight and obese where I come from. And the numbers are even more shocking when you look at children who are at the age of 10 or younger. And I honestly struggle to understand this. When people are unfit and unhealthy, we have a well-being crisis on our hands. And this should be one of our priorities at the political level. So with this revision, we want to ensure that we have a common framework that is fit to address today's realities. We have already started consultations with the World Health Organization and also with the HAPA national contact points, and our objective is to deliver this early next year. We will talk about this further soon in our panel on this. My second point is on Europe Day and on the European Week of Sport. First of all, I want to thank you for making the 2025 European Week of Sport an incredible, a tremendous success. But I want 2026 to be even bigger than this. I know that you have discussed in your panel with Georgia yesterday ideas about how to make this happen, and we will turn to you when the time comes to ensure that in 2026 we deliver and we bring sport closer to our citizens. And then Europe Day. This is when we celebrate Europe itself. Last year, the most striking example of the celebration was El Clásico. I would say that this is the only celebration that people still remember today. We had two clubs that came together to show their commitment to Europe and to its values, flying the European flag with pride in one of the biggest sporting stages of the world. But this year, again, I want more. I want to see the spirit across the continent, from Cyprus to Portugal, across all sport, from football to basketball, volleyball, and aquatics. Around Europe Day, I want to see the yellow stars of Europe visible in stadiums, in local communities, and in local clubs. And in conclusion, I want to thank you for your dedication, for your trust, for your criticism, for your engagement, and for the open dialogue that we have. Never underestimate how important sport is. Because while rules help organize Europe, it is people that hold it together. And for our people, sport plays a significant role in their lives, in giving them purpose and creating a sense of belonging. And this is why I am so grateful to be part of this conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Micallef. So now I'd like to invite the panel on stage. So take a seat, because we have a few vacant seats to fill. So I'd like to invite Giedrius Grybauskas, Jean-Michel Saive, and Dr. Irshad Ali Shaikh to the floor. Please come and join us. So, ladies. So, gentlemen, please have a seat. We've got free seating up here, so sit wherever you like. And so I'm just going to introduce you all, and then we're going to watch the video with Kirsty Coventry, as you mentioned, Commissioner, because she's got some important messages for us. But starting with you, Dr. Shaikh, you are representing the World Health Organization, and you're head of Cyprus office. So you haven't traveled far to get here in opposition to many in the room. Giedrius Grybauskas, welcome to you too, Vice Minister of Education, Science and Sport in Lithuania. Before moving into politics, I think you've had an extensive career within sports. Previous executive director of the National Basketball League in Lithuania, former director of the National Mobility Institute, and many other things. And then Jean-Michel Saive, he is chair of the Belgium Olympic and Interfederation Committee. As an athlete, he has been competing in 7 Olympic Games. As a table tennis champ, 25 times Belgium single champion. And you were the first I met this morning when we were going for a run. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to run with Jean-Michel Saive. I wanted instantly to return to my room, because you're a bit of a legend. You have won a silver medal at the World Championships, and you've become European champions, and many more. And now you've moved into sports politics, so good to have you here. But to be honest, we're not going to discuss elite sport in this panel. We're going to discuss how we can move more, live better, and why movement matters at every age. And that means we're going to discuss some of the things we also touched on yesterday, which are, how do we make sure that people exercise all the way through their lives, because the Commissioner just alluded to the fact that that obesity is a thing in Europe, and even more so in a few years to come. It's going to develop quite rapidly, but also there's a strong sense of belonging, there's a strong identity in doing sports. So, and we want that cohesion in Europe. So that's what's on the table at the moment. But as the Commissioner mentioned earlier, we would like to see just a short video message coming from the International Olympic Committee, represented by Kirsty Coventry. So let's have a look at the video.
Dear Commissioner Micallef, dear representatives of the EU member states, dear friends, your forum takes place in difficult times. The countless wars and conflicts around the world continue to cause untold human suffering. And every day, it seems the vicious cycle of violence and discrimination only spirals further. Sport and the Olympic Games in particular offer the opposite of the division we see in this world. They offer a rare space where people meet not as adversaries, but as fellow human beings, a much-needed space for peaceful competition. A few weeks ago at the Milano Cortina 2026 Olympic Winter Games, in the middle of Europe, we witnessed this power of sport to unite us all. And athletes reminded us what excellence, friendship, and respect look like in a world that sometimes forgets these values. They showed us what humanity can be at its very best, inspiring generations around the world with the Olympic spirit. But the athletes can only inspire us if they are able to compete. They can only do so if we keep sport strictly neutral ground, if politics does not take over on the field of play. For all of us, this means that we must protect the autonomy of sport, so that we can tell all the athletes, no matter where they come from, yes, you can compete freely without political interference beyond your control. And so I call on the EU and its member states to stand by these principles that you have recognized so often. Respect the autonomy of sport and support the political neutrality of the IOC and of the Olympic Games. Because only then can the power of sport truly unfold. In Milano Cortina, we showed that this is possible. Together with our gracious Italian hosts, we celebrated the best winter athletes of the world. Milano Cortina 2026 were a new kind of Olympic Winter Games, the first ever widespread games, blending tradition and innovation, taking gender equality to new heights, with women accounting for a record 47% of athlete quotas. Taking place shortly after the success of the Paris 2024, these games once again showcase the best of our shared European and Olympic values. With their remarkable medal haul, the athletes from your countries reminded us in an impressive way that Europe is not only a winter sport powerhouse, but also the home of winter sport. We are already looking forward to celebrating our shared values once again in the heart of Europe at the French Alps 2030 Olympic Winter Games. Behind this success is more than sporting excellence. It reflects the strength of a model of sport built on solidarity, openness, and opportunity for all. Principles that also underpin the European sport model and that we hope to see strengthened in the forthcoming EU strategic vision for sport. This model lives every day at the heart of our communities through grassroots sport. And investing in this model means investing in healthier, more cohesive and more resilient communities across Europe. Studies show that every dollar invested in sport and physical activity can generate up to a fourfold return through reduced healthcare costs, increased productivity, and longer, healthier lives. This is crucial at a time when 80% of youngsters and 1 in 3 adults are not sufficiently active. Physical activity is therefore not only a lifestyle choice, it is one of the most effective, low-cost, high-impact tools to prevent disease and support mental health. But to make it a real impact, we must act collectively. The update of the EU recommendations on physical activity offers a real opportunity for coordinated action. This shared commitment is already delivering visible results. We can be proud and grateful of what we have achieved together. And if we stay true to the principles and values that unite us, then I have no doubt that sport can continue to play its role in our societies and the Olympic Games, to be a beacon of hope for us all. In this spirit, I wish you a productive forum.
Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think I'd like to start with the youngsters, and then we can move to 55 plus, because I mean both groups are really, really important. But clearly, there's a lot of pulling power in screens, apps, players, social media, etc., etc. So, Mr. Grybauskas, how do we get kids interested in sport from an early age, and in particularly when we get to the dropout ages? Teenagers and so on, because then we see a significant drop from sports. That's one of the huge challenges. So what do you suggest?
Good day, Mr. Commissioner, dear colleagues, dear friends of sport. This is very important questions, I think, and you are discussing these questions all around your countries, in the policymakers, in the families, in the clubs. And we have all that discussion, I don't know, many years ago until now. And in the future we will have the same the questions, I think. So my topic maybe should go not to the education system, but to the families, to the example of parents. And by my personal experience, I know that father and mother or grandmother and parents, they have much more power to help the young kids to be more active, and not just physically active, but also we have a lot of, also I would say, not a lot, but much more problems with the kids who have mental problems and etc. So the time that we spend as parents, it's very important at this age from 0 to 6 until the kids go to school, because we want to have a healthy person in the future. We want to have a healthy person not just in sport, but also in the mental way, without the psychological problems, and strong mentally. So I read some article about the time, how many minutes per day the parents spend with their kids. It's approximately, but this is 7 minutes after kindergarten. So directly to the kids. It's not approximately. So that is not good. I think it's not enough. And if we give more attention to that period, to the parents, and we as a policymakers should communicate, or should do a better condition for this age, for the parents, for the father or mother who is playing a very big role on the child.
Yeah. So clearly a strong emphasis on the role that parents play in their kids' life. But Jean-Michel Saive, you've been a part of the sort of organized club life, federations for I guess most of your life. How can they create positive experiences for kids, not just focusing on competitions, elite, talent development and so on, but in creating confidence, enjoyment, coherence, identification?
Well, first I have to say that my Joseph was my mother, because she was secretary of the club, local club, and I started with her to play table tennis, and now she's 79 years old, and she's still teaching young kids to play table tennis. So the first people that you met in the clubs, they're so important, because they are the first persons that give you the joy, the technique to go on and to continue. So we have to focus, of course, on the club, but also on the people who can help and bring the the kids to continue to move and to do sport. Now, with my position as a president of the Belgium Olympic Committee, we have the Urban Youth Games, where we support this organization who tries to bring kids from 10 to 12 years old to initiate new sports. So maybe they don't have the possibilities via the parents or the family to try sports, but with those activities in different cities, they may try new sports. We mix them from different schools, so they learn to know some different friends, and they start new sports, Olympic sport, Paralympic sport also. So it's very inclusive, and hopefully when you can see in their eyes that it's shining, because we bring also Olympians there. So hopefully they can continue and go in the clubs and meet one Joseph or one like my mother and continue to grow up in the club.
Yeah. So what you say is, you know, the first experience is very important. The fact that they do have good coaches, they look after them, take care of them, open their eyes to you know, not just the sport itself, but also the community within the sport.
Yeah, and then it's very important for the kid, because as it was said several times in the forum, then it's self-confidence, they know better their body, their health, they communicate with friends, they live in society, they don't stay just in front of their phones or tablets or whatever, so they do something different, they move. And as we know, when we are moving, we feel ourselves much better. And after the run this morning, I feel better, and mentally and physically. So we have to try to promote this as much as possible that the kids are more and more moving.
Yeah. Dr. Shaikh, can you tell us about the priorities for the World Health Organization when it comes to physical activity? I mean, what's at stake here for the young generation? The Commissioner just mentioned the fact that obesity is a thing. So what is at stake here as you see it?
First and foremost, let me thank the Commissioner for supporting WHO, and also that on behalf of Dr. Hans Kluge, the Regional Director for WHO Europe, the healthy aging is a priority for the European Programme of Work for 2026 to 2030. Now, having said that, the economic and social resilience of Europe depends upon physical activity and healthy aging. It does not only say that how long people are living, but how healthily they are living, how functional they are, what is their mental health, and their social participation. Now, across Europe, fertility rates are dropping, workforce participation is lowering, and people are aging. By 2050, I think 35% of our population, 1 in 3, will be above 60 years. So if we reduce dependence and disability through physical activity, let me say up front, physical activity is one of the single most critical factors that transcends age and improves functional ability, mental health, your participation. The speakers talked about kids leaving their screen and going out, working. One of the things that we are complaining in schools also, the kids do not communicate. They text, so they are physically disconnected, socially connected. So again, physical activity improves that factor. And then also, COVID proved that healthy population is a strategic advantage. If you have healthy population, you contribute more, you participate more, you reduce dependency on the state, you survive long, and then the pressure on health system and long-term care also goes down. So physical activity is a triple win for individual, the community well-being, and for the economic resilience, because the population can contribute more, longer, healthily, and without being, being dependent on the state at the least possible, or maybe at the last stages of life.
Okay, so that's a win-win-win situation. Yes. Yeah, it's a triple. So, Commissioner, can we talk a little bit about psychological well-being as well? Because when we talk youngsters here, there's no doubt about the fact that we have a lot of psychological issues, and you mentioned obesity in your speech, which is a huge problem. But youngsters not enjoying themselves, enjoying their lives is a huge thing as well. So can you tell us a little bit about the role of sports, the role of the community, the identity as a sportsman for that issue? Because this is something we're going to tackle as well.
Yeah, first of all, please let me allow me to thank Kirsty Coventry for her message. It was a powerful message from a powerful woman. In her own way, Kirsty Coventry is a trailblazer. She is the first female president of the International Olympic Committee. She is an Olympic champion, and she's an inspiration for so many young women and girls who look up to people like her to be active in life and active in sport, but also beyond sport. What you heard from Kirsty Coventry aligns with my position. I think there's a strong message of support there for athletes, for participation of athletes, irrespective of their passport or of their identity. What's more important to me is that sport is never allowing itself to become an instrument for propaganda, like we've seen in the Paralympic Games a few days ago. And this is propaganda that is still being used up until this very weekend. There was a festival in Bologna by Russia Today, which is a sanctioned organization, using footage from the Paralympic Games as propaganda for its war in Ukraine. So this is, I think, a security issue as well, and one where there needs to be a dialogue between the sporting movement and public policymakers. Now, going to your question. The way I see it, sport has to be a right. I don't have a crystal ball, but I see two existential challenges that we have in Europe. The first is a demographic challenge, and the doctor mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, a couple of seconds ago actually, where we have populations that are growing older. We have a replacement rate that is on the decline. We have lower fertility rates, and that will have a huge impact on our economies, on our social security systems, on our health, and on our well-being. But the second is a well-being crisis. And I speak here mostly for Europe. The amount of, or the number of non-communicable diseases that we face here in Europe continues to grow. Respiratory problems, heart and cardiovascular issues, all linked to inactivity. So these are issues that as our populations grow older, we will face even more of. And this is going to place huge pressures on public budgets and on public health care systems in Europe, which means that we will have to spend more money to treat diseases which are preventable. So what I would like to see is a change in culture, a change in mindset, where we see spending in sport as an investment rather than as a cost. An investment that helps us prevent these kinds of diseases. Now, as our populations grow older, our younger citizens, our younger members of our society become even more important. They are the ones who will need to contribute to the financing of these healthcare systems and to society more broadly. But what we see, unfortunately, and I mentioned the example of the member state that I know best, where I come from, where under 10 years of age, we see 2 from every 3 children that are suffering from obesity and being overweight. And this brings huge issues. We're living sedentary lifestyles. Screen time continues to grow, and we have, I believe we have to invest in education on nutrition, on physical activity, and on encouraging people to be more mobile. And I think we have to see sport as not something which is a nice to have, but something which is essential, something that we cannot do without. I think the projects that I've seen being implemented here in Europe set the tone and are pretty important examples. The 1 mile a day club, for example, to improve eyesight and to improve the well-being of children. Teaching life skills through sport, how to communicate, how to tackle difficult situations in life. Sport has a very important role when it comes to non-formal education, and this is something where we can exploit far better. Social inclusion. In the opening of last year's European Week of Sport, I was in Denmark.
I remember.
In a basketball court in Denmark with a very small investment. This was the best example of how communities can better integrate people who are maybe coming in, how to better understand one another, and how maybe to put difficult situations in life aside for a moment and come together through sport. And then mental well-being and fighting non-communicable diseases. This is for sport, through sport, I think one of the most effective ways to deal with. So I really believe that what we need is structural change, and we have to stop looking at physical activity as an individual responsibility and something that we do collectively, systematically, through all policies, through health policy, through education policy, through sport, through all throughout our political systems.
All right, thank you. Well, let's leave the youngsters for a while and turn to the fact that we want people to be active within sports for the rest of their life, because people tend to drop out of sports when they are 55 plus. I mean, 60% never exercise of the European population plus 55. So that number is way too high. Jean-Michel. So tell me, I mean, table tennis is a kind of sport you can play for quite a while. I don't want to insult anyone, but you know, it's possible. So how do you in the clubs cater for this particular part of the population? I mean, do you make groups for 55 plus, 65 plus, 75 plus? So how do you do it?
So first of all, I have to say I'm very proud to be invited because I'm plus 55. So
yes.
But I have to say I stopped to play table tennis. But to come back to my mother, she's Belgium champion over the 75.
Yes.
So you see that indeed with this sport you can continue. And again, she opened the door of the club for the senior during the day. So we have also to rethink maybe the mindset and the occupation of some sports club during the day when the children are also at school, and to give the opportunity for the 55 and plus to maybe have the chance to go and to do some different activities. So of course it's very important to continue and to do sport and to come back to the family. They are parents, but they are also grandparents, and those grandparents who will continue or start to do sport may go also to drive the kids to the school. So it's very important to also involve those generation of people to do sport and to be active.
Yeah. And you know, maybe you know that from your mother, but you know, sport for the elderly is also a social event. So they usually, you know, my mother is 83, she plays tennis and has lunch. Yeah. And even though some of them get injuries, which they do all the time because they're 80 plus, then they do come for lunch because it's a social event and they enjoy that a lot. It's a strong identity being a tennis player or a table tennis player or whatever. So we have to give them the options of being together.
Indeed, and they try several sports. She started to play pétanque because she wanted to be with people, because now she's alone. So indeed, we have to create an environment to bring those people to do activities and physical activities, and maybe after it will also generate motivation for the kids or grandchild to go and do sport as well.
Yeah. Mr. Grybauskas, what can policymakers do to make sure that people stay active all life? because some of it may be, non-organized options, WhatsApp groups and so on. They need access to facilities as well. So what are your reflections on that?
So actually, I think that we know, each of us know that physical activity is a normal way to stay healthy longer, but how we manage that's the question. So I think that most important for the political side to remember and to repeat that at the workplace you should have some sport equipment, you should have some sport facilities, because a lot of time we spend at work, and you can also have an active lunch, 50 minutes walk, or online Pilates for women. So that's very important to repeat that you can have some more possibilities to take a part during the work job. That's why I think that what we can or should do more than is give more attention to communication, to remember that those people that you can as a prevention, as you said, that the communication should be stronger than communication of buying some medicine if you have pain or head pain or something. We should also, on the same level, communication that reminds you that you're being active during a day, that you should change your day plan of your activities. It's your responsibility against your kids, against your mother and father. Yeah. That is very important.
But do you think we need to make specific initiatives tailored for specific groups? To a much larger degree than today?
If we're speaking about open facilities, that is very important, but I think that EU members are more or less, how to say, ready for suggest their citizens open park, open spaces, fitness equipment at parks, etc. So we need just more people to use them. So, that's the problem.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so Mr. Shaikh, what do the World Health Organization do specifically when it comes to older people, and how can all these messages come across without sounding too paternalistic from WHO?
Okay, so before I answer the question, allow me to thank Commissioner Micallef for being such an eloquent speaker of good health and sports. He should be a WHO representative somewhere. Having said that, I think he also mentioned about NCD, so that's a very critical element, that sport and healthy activity reduces hypertension, diabetes, cancer, dementia. It has a positive impact on all. But also coming from US and Health Commissioner Pennsylvania, we would have sports in the afternoon in summer for young to reduce violence. Because if they were free and out in the street, there were more interpersonal violence. So sports has many positive externalities that we can think about and bring best practices together. So coming for elderly people, the WHO recommendation is about 2.5 to 5 hours every week of moderate aerobic activity, or...
Mike?
Yeah.
Or, to the mouth.
Come again? Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Activity, or about, I would say, 1.5 to 2.5 hours of rigorous aerobic activity, plus twice a week muscle strengthening activities and balance. And I think one other element that we must emphasize on physical activity is that every small thing counts. It's not that you plan, and unless you plan something big or join a gym, you can't do anything. So
sometimes it can just be one flight of stairs.
Exactly, just flight of stairs, just walk, just stand up a couple of times. So, and then also, speakers already talked about family has a very strong element in supporting, especially elderly, in these behaviors. And then I think also the health systems, the primary healthcare physician, who has the most contact and the trust of the, especially geriatric population, to talk about, emphasize, give 2 or 3 minutes precisely to talk about physical activity. And because, again, You improve physical activity, you reduce dependence, reduce disability, you prevent costs on not just health systems but on social support services also, and improves the quality of family life.
Yeah. So also it's a very strong message that, it's not, you don't have to put on your running shoes or go play tennis. You can do very simple things throughout the day to strengthen yourself.
Exactly. Just get up, join the panel, and then that's your exercise.
Yeah. well,
the point on preventing the point on preventing costs is extremely important. In the European Union, and I speak of the European Union because this is what I know. Every year, the estimates show that we're spending 9 billion euro. 9 billion euro every year on the treatment of non-communicable diseases. Do you know how much we spend? Probably people in this room would know. Every 7 years, in Erasmus, which is the main program supporting sports investments, every 7 years we spend 500 million. So we spend 18 times more in treating preventable non-communicable diseases than the investment we make.
But then, Mr. Commissioner, can you tell us something about what the EU do actually to promote physical activity throughout life? I mean, also in old age, just exactly what Mr. Shaikh mentions.
I will do one better. I will tell you 5 things that we do.
Okay.
So the first thing that we do is we promote sport. Because a lot of this, as you've heard from previous speakers, involves education and awareness campaigns. And every year, through the European Week of Sport, we encourage Europeans to be active. We've seen in 2025 millions of Europeans, through activities planned and implemented by people who are in this room, take part in sport. And this is...
so that's the first thing.
That's a celebration of sport and an awareness-raising campaign that we do every year in September, the end of September, 23rd to the 30th of September. We're in the 10th year now. We're going on into the 11th year. And we hope to reach many more people. We've reached 100 million people over the last 10 years.
So that's one thing. I think that resonates with the audience.
That's the first one. Yeah. The second is that we create a movement. We create an alliance of people who are like-minded, who value sport, who come together with us every year in the Be Active campaign to encourage physically active lifestyles among Europeans. So this is what we do to try and normalize sport as much as possible. The third point, and I referred to this in my introductory remarks in my speech, is to acknowledge and recognize best practices. We speak a lot about the shortcomings, the challenges, but we have to acknowledge the things that are being done right. So one of the things that we actually take pride in is this process, the European Sport Awards, the EU Sport Awards, which we organize every year to recognize initiatives implemented by the sporting movement to promote social inclusion through sport, to promote volunteering through sport, to promote peace through sport, and to promote values through sport. This is, I think, a point which is not to be underestimated. Now, the fourth point is that we fund and we support the sporting movement. There are structural and infrastructural investments also being implemented through EU funds. I come a few weeks ago from Slovenia, where through regional development and cohesion funding, ski jumping infrastructure is being built through European funds. And we have so many other examples across Europe of investments being made through European funding and with European support. Beyond this, Erasmus Plus continues to finance thousands of projects that build capacities in the sporting movement, that encourage mobility, that allow athletes to have experiences across member states, and these are really important and valuable contributions. And then the last point is that we coordinate and we plan. And this is what we will do with the HEPA recommendation, which we will update. We will coordinate, And this is something that I've learned in my years of experience in the civil service. I see colleagues from the civil service of the member state that I know best, is that we give indicators. Because if there's one thing that I've learned, is that what is measured gets done. So through the HEPA recommendation, we will outline indicators, we will help member states prepare national plans, we will monitor the implementation, and we will help and support member states even further to make sport a part of our daily lives.
All right, gentlemen, so these are 5 things that is being driven by the EU. We have got so many other things to talk about, but time is running. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us here in Cyprus, joining the conversation, and not least for the excellent work you do in your respective countries. So thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for the invite.
So